Hello, hello, good evening, and welcome to the Cancer Coach Talks. I'm your host, Leslie Nance, and tonight we are going to be talking about a very tabooed subject. Nobody ever wants to talk about the subject that we're talking about tonight, and that is death. And I am going to explore with you 4 truths about death tonight, because I promise you that we would talk about the truth of this subject. So welcome everybody. Thank you so much for being here. It's good to have you here. Hello, hello. Hi, Anne. Hi, Sonia. Hello. Thank you guys for popping in so quickly here, right? So we're gonna explore this topic. Before we get too far down that road, let me just say a couple of things. And the number one thing I want to say is that I do these trainings on Tuesdays and Thursday nights at 6 p.m. Mountain Time. So make sure that you turn on the notifications for the group so that you can see, hi, I know, it's good to have you here. Thank you so much. So that you can see in the group when we go live. So make sure that you have your notifications on for that. If you're watching this on YouTube, thank you so much for watching the videos. There are a lot more Cancer Coach Talks, so make sure that you subscribe to our channel and you check out those other talks that we're having. Let me just get rid of that. Sorry about that. And you check out those other talks that we are having over there on the on YouTube. And if you're watching here live on Facebook right now, thank you so much. It's really good to be here with you this evening. So this is a big topic, and there's no way that I'm going to be able to share with you all the depths of death tonight, and what it entails in each of our lives. And so I'm just going to hit on some high notes tonight, and I'm going to share with you these 5 truths about death tonight. So we're just going to jump right in. Again, thank you guys for being here. If you know somebody that's supposed to be here, maybe tag them in the comments so that they know that they were supposed to be here. If you've spoken to somebody, I know a lot of you guys talk amongst yourselves, and so if you knew that they were supposed to be here tonight, you might tag them in the comments. So, the very thought of discussing death is taboo, and some people might even think that it is uncouth to speak about death, especially in a room full of people who probably, hi, it's good to see you, Eugene. Hi, Dawn, thank you for being here. Especially in a room full of people that are dealing with cancer. But this is a very practical discussion, and the chances are that if you have mentioned death to your loved ones, you've gotten a reaction like, oh, don't talk that way. Don't talk that way. You're not going to die. And it was very tongue-in-cheek that they say that because they're not sure. You might even sense their fear when they say something like that. But that's most often when we have cancer. That's most often when we want to talk about death, that we get that emotion from somebody. It's an immediate deflection that comes up from the person that we're talking to. And hi, Richard. It's immediate deflection that comes up, and they're like, oh my gosh, they think that they're dying. And it sets a fear spiral in them, and then their fear spiral comes back on you because you oh my gosh, they think I'm going to die. And in all honesty, all you want to do is just talk about the possibility. You want to get it off your chest. And sometimes this can be very, very difficult for us to achieve, especially those of us that are dealing with a disease like cancer. And so I want to share some truths with you tonight that I think are pivotal. And we're going to have a discussion about this. And so the first question, and I'm going to continue on, but I'm going to ask you this question right now. Is there anybody in the group that has an intense fear of death as it relates to your cancer? And you can just type in yes or me or whatever. But is there anybody in the group that has an intense fear of death as it relates to your cancer? Yeah. Okay. A lot of people think that death is the opposite of life, right? We think about, in fact, people use those two things, right? You live, you're born, you live, and you die. And we compare life as the opposite of death, and vice versa, that death is the opposite of life. But in fact, it is not, because death is actually a part of life. You cannot exist on this planet forever. Something at some point is going to kill you, and you are going to die. And you may be like, dang, girl, like, dang, I mean, why don't you just put it like up in my face? Why don't you get all up in my face about this? That's what I wanted to do tonight. Because cancer gives us this false sense that everything is an emergency. And all of a sudden, we are faced with our own mortality, or so we think so. But I guarantee you, every time you get in your vehicle to drive somewhere, you are faced with your mortality. When you get on an airplane, when you know, whatever, anything that you do in that case and in that thinking, you would be faced with your mortality, because you're a living, breathing thing on this planet. And so I want to put a little perspective around that. Cancer tends to give us this huge, like this thing, right? Like this thing that's like floating around, and we're like, ooh, I could die any day now, and this cancer could kill me if I'm not careful. But you don't think about that when you get in your car. You don't think, you probably heard about like 3 traffic fatalities in your city. I live near a big city, so it happens a lot. You probably heard about all kinds of traffic fatalities today or this week. And when you got in your car, you weren't like, whoo, that could be me. Wonder if I should even get in the car. Maybe I shouldn't even get in the car. I shouldn't even get in the car and go anywhere. Now, I know that some people do struggle with things like that, but I'm just trying to put some perspective around this. Just trying to put some perspective around how cancer gives us like this emergency thing that's like sitting out there, like beeping at us, like, oh, I'm going to cut you. Right? I remember George Carlin saying that, actually. So let's get to the number one truth about death, right? The truth is, most of us do not fear the actual act of death or the actual act of dying. We fear different things, and those things can, and you guys can throw in your own ideas too, right? You can throw in your own ideas about this. But we fear being left out of future events. We fear not being able to see our children grow up and get married and have children of their own. We fear not being able to see our grandchildren. I don't have grandchildren, but seeing grandchildren, graduate high school. We fear, worrying about not seeing certain things in our lives, like missing out on these certain things. That's what we fear. Those are the things that make us scared of death. It's not the actual death itself. The other thing that we fear is pain and suffering. And I think it was Richard who said death is not the worst thing that can happen. And that's so true. It's so true. But because we think about death, we worry about everything leading to it. And so we worry about the pain and the suffering and the pain and suffering of our families and watching them transition and go through, like this craziness. And we think about worst case scenario, like the absolute worst thing that could happen to us. And we think about all those side effects and how that ripples through our family. And that's the other thing that we think about, is those that we leave behind. Now, what you guys don't know is that I work with a lot of people that are in the end of life scenario. So my program is called Any Stage Cancer Nutrition Protocol. And any stage signifies any stage of cancer, any stage of life, any stage of treatment. And so any kind of cancer too. And so when we think about, end of life scenarios, a lot of people are like, God, how do you do that? Like, how do you, and I'm like, it's a beautiful thing to watch someone transition gracefully into the end of their life. It's a blessing to be there to witness that. It doesn't signify an end necessarily. It signifies a beautiful person that has existed here on this planet and has left so many beautiful things behind, transitioning in a peaceful way where they're at peace with what is happening to them. And everyone around them, although they will miss them and they love them and they don't want them to die, feel the same peace. And that is a gift. And at some point, your beautiful soul and body that lives here on this planet will have to transition off of this planet. And well, your body's not leaving this planet. You just go right back into the planet, unless you're getting shot off in space or something, which is really cool. And if you know a way to do that, I'd be like Spock, got shot off into. Okay, anyway, but watching that and then thinking about the legacy that person left behind, it's a beautiful thing. And so although it makes me very sad to have that happen, to walk with somebody through that process, and usually we've had like a long, hard battle getting to that point, and I've had people that have actually said to me, I'm ready to die now. And it's not because they wanted to leave or because they were giving up. It's truly that they were ready and they were in a place that they could leave and they felt comfortable doing so. So that's the number one truth. Most of us don't actually fear the actual part of death. We fear everything that leads up to it and what we are going to leave behind, who and what, not necessarily what, but who we're going to leave behind, how they're going to transition through the process, and then having fear of being left out of future events. That is usually not a fun thought for anybody. So hi, Lisa. Hi, Richard. Oh, Richard was already here, right? It is. It is like a beautiful immersion. I agree. Okay, number two truth that I know. Life is a gift. Believe it or not, this is a story about death, but your life is a gift. And if you are spending it, and you're spending all your days worried about what is happening to you and stressing about what is happening to you, then you're not able to live your life. And cancer is bossing you around. Bottom line, told you I wasn't pulling any punches tonight. I am not pulling any punches tonight. If life is a gift, and every breath of every single day is a gift, what's the meme that says, or the quote that says, I opened up 2 beautiful gifts this morning. They're called my eyes. Right? If we treat life as a gift every single day, with every single breath that we take, then cancer doesn't have a room to take over. It doesn't have room to be the boss because we are too busy living our lives. And the people that I see that are doing the very best, if they're able, they continue work. If it's possible, they continue taking care of their grandchildren. If it's feasible, they continue volunteering at the places. They continue going to church. They never skip a beat in their life. And that is how I help people. I help people feel better during their treatment process and during surgery so that you don't have to skip a beat. You might miss a couple days. You might have a week out. But you're not totally removing yourself from life. You guys hear me say it over and over again, saying, look you gotta take a break from cancer. What are you doing that is not related to cancer today? So if life is a gift, then you better darn well start acting like it. No one at the end of their life ever says something like, I wish I had more money. I wish I would have worked longer hours. I wish that I had a fancy new car. There's not a single person at the end of their life that wishes for any of that. The two things that they wish for, and I've been with many people at the end of their life, the two things that they wish for is more time, and that they would have had the experiences that they planned their entire lives and never took advantage of. You've seen that movie, The Bucket List? The guy's dying of cancer. They take all the money. They're going to go do all this guy's like bucket list stuff, right? That's not too far from the truth. Now, I'm not saying be irresponsible. And I know a lot of you are not near the end of your lives. But you are not going to regret having a fancy car or not having a fancy car or a fancy house or having things. You're going to regret that you didn't take an opportunity to do the experiences that you wanted to do. You're going to regret not reaching out to that friend that you haven't talked to in 20 years. You know, you sit there and you wonder, I wonder why they haven't called me. You know, don't they know I have cancer? I wonder why they haven't called me. That phone works two ways, baby. What are you doing? You want to talk to somebody? Stop sitting on your can lamenting that they haven't called you and pick up the phone and call them. This is a cyclical relationship with life and death. This is something that's always changing. Try to do it without any regrets. I know the people that pass on that have the least amount of regrets. They lived very, very, like, just in a very, what am I trying to say? Very humbly, in a very humble house with very humble cars, with very humble things. And those people passed on in this beautiful way. And I know people that have passed that were stress cadets, and they always were after the dollar. They were always after the next thing that was going to make them happy. But really, the happiness had nothing to do with that. The happiness had to do with how they lived their lives, because your life is a gift. It has been given to you. You didn't earn it. You don't deserve it. You get to live this life. It is a privilege to live this life. That's the second truth I know about death. The first truth is that most of us don't actually fear the actual part of death. The second part is that your life is a gift. The third truth that I know is that and we touched on this a little bit earlier, but any disease, any type of disease, heart disease, diabetes, anything that goes wrong with your body, diagnosed, undiagnosed, suspicion, speculation, diagnoses, tests, severity, not severe, anything that goes wrong with your body, the first freaking thing you think of is, I'm going to die. This could kill me. I mean, I had bronchitis, like this time last year, I had bronchitis in like the worst way ever. I had bronchitis that last year, and I was like, I'm not too sure this isn't going to kill me. I was so sick. Anything that goes wrong, we start having a suspicion. Imagine when you find a lump in your breast, or you have a strange feeling in your gut that you've never had before, or a bump develops on your elbow, or you have this lump on your back, or all of a sudden you have like acute pancreatitis, or you can't breathe, or you're coughing up blood, or whatever, you have blood in your stool. Imagine what that triggers, and a lot of you can. Imagine what that triggers. And so any type of disease promotes the thought of death. These two things almost live in coexistence. As soon as I was diagnosed with cancer, I was like, holy crap, this is it. Like, this is over. This is going to kill me. I went down that road for a long time. This is it. This is the end of the road. Done. I mean, I have pictures of me at Christmas where I'm like fully like clinging onto Robin, like he's like, you know, like I'm like, ah! I'm like fully clinging on to him. And the reason I hardly ever do that with him. I mean, we are touchy-feely, but not like that. I'm like fully like, like clinging on to him at that Christmas I was diagnosed, because I thought that was my last Christmas. And I was saying to my family, you need to take lots of pictures of me this Christmas because I probably won't be here next year. So any disease promotes the thought of death. You have this thing, and that thing could possibly kill you. And I used this analogy earlier, but I always wonder, you know, we have this emotion of this, but we don't fear things that could actually, like, I mean, that are, you know, could kill us in a day, which are, you know, like our cars. They're like big giant vehicles, and we, you know, and people die in them every single day, and but we don't worry about that. You know, we don't worry about getting in our car. It's some weird fear mechanism that we have, like we've shut off about that. I see people do crazy stuff in cars all the time. I'm like, really? Did you just do that? So it's that trigger, that urgency that these types of diseases give us in our life, right? Number four, what I know, the truth about death, is that an intense fear of death has nothing to do with death itself. It has everything to do that you have some unfinished, unresolved things in your life. Now, that doesn't mean when you resolve them that you're going to die. What it means is that usually when we have an intense fear of death, we have regrets of things that we have not completed, things that we have not experienced, things that we have not seen, things that we have not partaken of, things that, things we have not said, things we have not reconciled with another human being, things we have not reconciled within ourselves. So typically that intense fear stems not from our disease, but actually from the unfinished business. Everybody following me on that one? Yeah. So sometimes it's maybe you feel like you've always had this intense purpose, and this purpose has not been fulfilled in your life. And so death comes as like a shock, and everyone around you, like everybody or anybody around you that dies, or you see them die or something, it triggers an emotion in you. One, that you're going to miss that person, of course you are, but two, that it could happen to you and you haven't finished the work that you thought you were put here to do. Or maybe you have some unresolved issues with a family member. Everybody take a drink of water, including me. I've been on the phone a lot today, so dry throat. Maybe you have dreams or goals that you haven't completed. And I'm not talking about like going on a vacation. That's not what I'm talking about. I want you to go bigger. I want you to go bigger, and I want you to go deeper than that. I'm talking about unresolved things in your life. And if you can resolve those things, then typically that intense thought process about fear goes away. Doesn't mean that once you resolve them, you're going to die. I already said that, but I think it's worth repeating. It just means that the fear of that can leave. Because once you resolve those things, once you figure out what it is that you're missing in your life, then that intense fear can leave, because then you start living with no regrets. Then you start living in a way where your life is on purpose. And if you were to get run over by a freight train and died, you could do it without any regrets in your life. Now, I have always lived my life this way. You must know. When I was diagnosed with cancer, it wasn't the death that scared me. It was the suffering that scared me, and I was willing to admit that. It was all the suffering that led to the death that freaked me out. And so that was the biggest thing that I was worried about for me personally. But the death part of itself, I could leave this world today and feel completely satisfied with my experiences, with the people in my life, that I've said everything that I wanted to say, that I never missed a moment to tell my mom and dad or my cousin or my husband or my friends or you guys that I love them, that I never skipped out on an opportunity, that served me well. So I'll give you an example of that. One of my biggest life dreams was to go to Kennedy Space Center and watch a rocket take off, because I love space. I don't know if you guys know that about me. I'm like a huge NASA, like my husband and I both are. We love space and the night sky and anyway, rockets, like the whole thing. And so astronauts, like the whole thing. We're like, wow, we're like goofballs about it. And an opportunity came up last year for me to do some work, some social work with NASA Social. And that meant I get to go to the Kennedy Space Center, and it was very inconvenient timing. Like, it was not good timing, and it would have been very easy for me. And I was a little bit sick with a cold. In fact, that's after I got home is when I got the bronchitis so bad. I was a little bit sick with a cold. It was not a good time for me to go do this. But I knew that if I didn't go do it, that it would be a regret in my life. And so I bit the bullet. I spent the money. I went out there. Robin and I both went out there. We saw the rocket launch. It was a highlight for me, right? Amy says the suffering was a big deal for her as well. Yeah, nobody wants that. Nobody wants that. But I took that opportunity. I'll give you another example. My grandmother, my dad's mother, she was my mamaw. That's what I called her. It's very Southern, isn't it? She was my mamaw. And my mamaw was 92 years old, and she just kept getting sicker and sicker and sicker. And she was not much on the I love you bit. She wasn't like that super cuddly, grandma type. But I was always that way with her. We already saw it. We saw it last weekend, actually, Richard. It was amazing. I agree. But I was always that way with her, but not so much back. And she would all but tell all my cousins and everything I was her favorite, which is kind of embarrassing, quite frankly. But anyway, and I'm like, really? I'm your favorite? Anyway, but my mama was a precious woman, and she taught me so much about life and so much about living life to the fullest and just how to be happy and joyful. And she was a happy person. She just wasn't she grew up in the Depression era, and it wasn't a big everything was a necessity. Nothing was extra in her life. And when she was dying, she was in the hospital, and then she was moved to hospice. I went to see her, and it wasn't convenient for me, but I spent day and night with her in the hospital at the end of her life. And I talked with her, and we laughed, and we both knew that she was dying. She knew she was dying. I knew she was dying. She was not in a lot of pain or anything. And we talked and we laughed, and we joked about the fact that we both have to have some kind of lip stuff on our lips all the time. And I was constantly she liked Vaseline. I was constantly putting Vaseline on her lips because she was like, my lips are dry. And I was, and we laughed and we carried on. And that was not easy for me to do. That was not easy for me to sit with her and watch her die, but it was such a necessity. And it wasn't that nobody else was there. I mean, all my aunts and uncles, there was a ton of people there, but it was a necessity. I needed that time with her. I needed to see her leave this world, and I needed her to know that I was there. And not because oh, good Leslie, you're such a good granddaughter. It didn't have anything to do with that. It's because I loved her and I respected her, and I wanted her to know that with her last breath, that I was, that she had all of that from me. It was important for me for her to know that. Robin tells a similar story, a little bit different, but a similar story. When his mom died, she died of emphysema. When his mom died, she was young. She was in her 60s. And when she died, Robin sat with her even after she passed. And he said, what I know about the body, and he's right, what I know about the body is that if the body's whole, especially, and it's not been trauma, it doesn't have trauma or something an accident or something has happened to it. When the body is whole, that we have electrical function in our brain for up to minutes after we die. And Robin sat with his mother after she died and just talked to her, not because he was just so sad. I mean, he was devastated that she had died, but as that moment, as she's exiting this planet, as she's exiting this life, he wanted that electrical activity, if it was being stimulated, for him to be a part of that. And nobody could even be in the room as she took her last breath. His sister, his brother, they just couldn't do it. And I understand that, actually, because that's something very hard. That's very difficult to watch that happen, and it's not for everyone. And I don't want you to feel guilty if you have lost a parent or something and you're thinking, oh my God, I didn't do that, I'm going straight to hell. I don't want you to think that way. It was just something that was really important to him, because she's gone. She's gone. But for him, he's left behind. And it was important for him, for her and him, for him to stay there and talk to her as her electrical energy died down in her body, as she took her last breaths. And so the things that I know about death, and this brings me to number 5, and that is that death is a tremendous motivator. It will bring out the best in you, or it'll bring out the worst in you. I'm sure that many of you have been in a situation where a loved one has died, and people, like, there's money involved and there's assets and whatever, like, you know what I mean? Like, there's like stuff left over and you have to divvy, what is that called? An estate. There's an estate. And how nasty people get about that sort of thing. I mean, most of you have either at least heard a story about that. And when you allow the worst to come out regarding death, which is the fear and the anxiety and the negative emotions that come with even the word, like when you say it, like most of you can't even believe that I'm having a blatant discussion about it, because it's so taboo in our society to even discuss it. And how dare you discuss it in a room full of people who have cancer? How dare me? I agree. It's an amazing part of life. It is not, excuse me, it is not the opposite of life. It's a part of life. And you get to experience it because you had a life. And so when you harness death as a motivator instead of an enemy, it becomes something very powerful in your life. And not because you're trying to avoid it, but because you don't fear it. Let me say that again. When death becomes a motivator in your life and not an enemy in your life, not because you're trying to avoid it, because you don't fear it, then you have harnessed the truth about death. You have harnessed what it is to be truly grateful for every single moment of every single day. The hard moments, the great moments, the happy moments, the sad moments, the moments near death. Because if you don't ever experience death, then you never experience life and you wouldn't be here. And so in reality, both things are a gift, because one cannot be present without the other. Can I get an amen? Right? Can I get an amen up in here right now? All right, you guys. Thank you for being brave enough to sit in on this conversation today. This is not an easy topic for most people to hear. This is not an easy topic for most people to understand why we would even talk about it. And I started the conversation, and a lot of you were not here, but I started the conversation in saying that if you try to discuss death especially as a cancer patient, if you try to discuss death with like a family member or somebody like that, they automatically shut you down and they're like, don't think, you're not going to die. Don't think that way. Right? And it's their own defense mechanism that comes up because they don't want you to die. But it's crazy how many people like avoid the subject so much. But it's a practicality, right? There you go, Dawn. Exactly. Thank you. I'm glad you're here too, Lisa. Thank you for being here. So if you're struggling with this, if this is something that you're struggling with, if you have so much fear surrounding the idea of death, then it's time to reach out. If you don't have anybody that will talk to you straight about death, it's time to reach out. It's time to make that progression. It's time to find somebody to help you through that. And if you think that that person is me, I would be honored if you reach out to me. I counsel people through this all the time. I counsel people through end life scenarios where they're approaching the end of their life. That, and okay, hold on, let me just say something just a second. Michelle, I don't know what point we're at. I don't see a timer on this one at all. But I'm gonna do this. Excuse me just a second, guys. Right here, Michelle, will you cut the video for YouTube? Just cut that right there. Thank you. Let me just say this. I have recently been with somebody this week, and actually this talk is inspired by her journey. A lot of you know Allison Faircloth, and Allison passed a week ago tomorrow. And a lot of people will love to say something stupid, like she lost her battle with cancer. Allison didn't lose jack. Allison was a fighter till her last breath. She is an amazing human being, and cancer did not win the battle. Let me tell you, it never did. Not in her mindset, not anywhere. Allison was an amazing woman. And I will tell you that anytime you think about the fact that, if you think about a soldier in battle, if you think about our men and women who are defending our country right now, and if they happen to die in battle, you don't think of them as losing. What do you think of them as? You think of them as a hero. You think of them as somebody to look up to. You think of them as somebody who fought for what they believed in. And when Allison passed last week, she didn't want any of you to think, oh my goodness, like this could happen to me. If it happened to her, it could happen to me. No, she wanted you to know that you can fight until your last breath. She wanted you to know that you should live without any regrets, and that you should tell everybody around you every single day how much you love and appreciate them. Even the people that you don't know, even the people in the drugstore, even the people at the grocery store, that you appreciate them. That's what she would want you to know. So I wanted to share that with you. She's an amazing woman. Her son, Riley, may see this actually, right? Yes, that's right. Fear is a liar. I agree with you. So I just wanted to share that with you. She inspired this talk. She would want you to know the truths about death. She would want you to know that that there's no way that she was, she had to have her life to experience that death. And every single one of us are the exact same way. So I want you to be super sensitive to that. When you understand that your life is a gift, you will understand that death is not something to be feared. Because if you don't experience death, it means you were never here in the first place. It is not the opposite of life. It is a part of it. So embrace that. Embrace that part of you. Okay, so if you need to reach out, I just wanted to share that with you, right? Right? I know, me too. And Allison is totally my hero. She She died in battle, and she is my 100% hero. I would never think about her as being defeated or lost or anything like that. You know, like she lost, that girl won every single day that she had breath on this planet. And so absolutely, yeah. Her liver just wasn't gonna like let her hang out long. So yes, she's an amazing woman. So all right, so let me give you the link. The link is go to kitchens. Did I get that right? Go to kitchens.com/apply. So check that out right there. If you need to book a call with me, it is absolutely free. Right? Yeah. Oh my goodness. I'm so sorry, Eugene. I had no idea. I had absolutely no idea. I'm sorry for your loss. But what a beautiful blessing that Leanne had a wonderful mother that she got to spend some time with. So yeah. All right. So if you need to reach out, that's the place to do it. If death is and cancer is bossing you around. By the way, typically if you're fearing death, cancer is bossing you around. If you have some unfinished business and you don't know what it is and you need help discovering that, I'm your girl. If you need help working on maybe death is not a big deal for you. Maybe you just need help on understanding how to make your body an inhospitable environment to cancer and to disease. I'm your girl for that. Maybe it's just getting your head set on straight, right? Maybe you just need to make an investment in yourself. You need to do something that is right for yourself. So many times especially when we have cancer, we think about everybody else's needs ahead of ourselves. And that sometimes is the reason we get into trouble in the first place, is that we put everybody else's needs in front of ours. We don't think enough about ourselves. But really, the biggest need that everybody needs from you in your life is you. They need your health. They need you to be healthy. That is the biggest gift you can give them. Not the things, not the shiny new objects that you work your tail off for. None of that matters. They're nice to have. I mean, I like nice new things just like anybody else. And I'm not saying like ditch it all. I'm just saying that they had rather have you healthy. What's the saying? You can't pour from an empty cup. So true. You cannot pour from an empty cup. You have to keep your cup full if you're going to be giving out to others. All right. So thank you guys for joining me this evening. Thank you for being brave enough to be here if you're watching this in replay or wherever you're watching this. Thank you for joining me. It's been a pleasure. I will be back on Thursday night. We're going to kind of double up on this thought process, and we're going to talk about healing pathways on Thursday night. And if you don't know what that means, then you better come hang out with me, because you know it's fun. Even when we're talking about death, you know you have fun. You know you learn something. I even learned something when I'm here talking to you guys about this sort of stuff. So yeah. All right. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. I will see you on Thursday night. Have a good evening, everybody. Eat well, be well, take good care of yourself, right? Take good care of, I love it. Take good care of yourself, and make sure you're taking some time away from cancer and cancer talk and cancer thinking and all that kind of stuff, and enjoying a little time for yourself. It's always super important. Sorry, I just ate dinner. That's why I got these little things. All right. Love you guys. Have a great evening. Bye, everybody.